You're watching NBC4, Washington's news leader. Live in HD, this is News 4 at 4.
Stormy weather, overcast skies, heavy rain, and cooler temperatures in the forecast. We'll tell you just how long this latest storm front could get and how long it's going to stick around. Good afternoon, I'm Pat Lawson-Muse.
And I'm Jim Hanley. Let's get straight to that weather now, folks. The latest with a live look outside right now where the rain continues to come down. But the big concern this evening, the possibility of severe weather.
Veronica Johnson is on post this afternoon tracking the weather from the Storm Center. Hi, Veronica.
Hey there, Jim and Pat. Well, those severe thunderstorm warnings have managed to stay far enough east of our area. You can see them going up there in Talbot and Caroline County, eastern Maryland. We've stayed clear of any severe thunderstorm watch or any severe thunderstorm warnings. But down south, you can see all the lightning there firing up anywhere through the northern neck around Westmoreland, St. Mary's, and Calvert County. As far as one little cell there around Langley, and then there's another little cell left straggling around eastern Howard County. And it's areas up to the north where we may see just a few more showers, maybe some thunderstorms firing up, but not quite as intense as the ones that moved through earlier here, starting at about 1:30. Did deliver 1/4 of an inch of rain in Springfield, Virginia. Meanwhile, Bristow, Virginia, picking up almost 1/4 of an inch of rain. These were fast-moving cells, so not the 1 and 1.5 inch totals that we could have gotten. And it is taking a bit off the heat, too. 80 degrees, the temperature will drop to the mid-70s by 11 p.m. So just a bit stormy for some for about another 1.5 hours to 2 hours or so. Less humid tomorrow behind this system, but we're not done for the week. We've got another system to talk about that could bring some severe weather. I'll have more coming up.
Oh boy, we'll see in a bit. Veronica, thank you. Well, today is the first day of the Atlantic hurricane season, which runs through November. Last summer's season was pretty mild. It took until August to get a second named storm. That was Bill. But this season is predicted to be quite active, the busiest, in fact, in 5 years. The first named storm of this season will be Alex.
The possibility of a hurricane mixing with the oil is overwhelming residents along the Gulf of Mexico. So efforts to fix that broken well are now more critical than ever. Today, crews started the so-called cut and cap procedure. Meanwhile, President Obama and his administration are stepping up the pressure. Jay Gray is in Venice, Louisiana, with the latest.
Robots are wielding diamond-tipped saws and moving equipment into place, including this containment dome that could be over the leak in the next 24 hours.
This technology, we think, will capture the vast majority of the fluids, if not all of the fluids.
But before that happens, it could actually increase the flow by up to 20%.
The fact of the matter is there'll be a period of time where there'll be hydrocarbons coming out of the well while we cut the pipe, remove it, and put the cap or the top hat in place.
As BP ramps up efforts on the floor of the Gulf, the White House is stepping up its presence and pressure along the coast.
Until the well is stopped, we'll multiply our efforts to meet the growing threat and to address the widespread and unbelievably painful losses experienced by the people along the Gulf Coast.
This week, the Secretary of the Interior, the EPA's lead administrator, and NOAA's chief will all travel to the region amid growing calls for BP to face civil or even criminal charges.
The lawsuits will all come. I don't even want to think about that.
Because right now, there are more pressing issues to think about. Plaquemines Parish held an emergency preparedness meeting today, the first day of hurricane season.
Will it be a catastrophe? Oh, my God. There's no telling what could happen.
Even without a storm, there's no clear indication of what's coming next along the Gulf Coast. It is becoming increasingly clear, though, that the flow of oil isn't likely to stop until work on a relief well is finished sometime in August. Jay Gray, NBC News, Venice, Louisiana.
And here's an unusual twist to this story. Federal officials have asked film director James Cameron for advice. Today, he, along with a group of scientists, met for a brainstorming session on stopping the leak. Because of his work on Titanic, the movie, Cameron is considered an expert on underwater technologies.
The lone suspect in the deadly Fort Hood shootings made his first court appearance today. Army Major Nidal Hasan is charged with 13 counts of premeditated murder, 32 counts of attempted murder. Today, his attorney won a request in delaying his Article 32 hearing until October. That hearing will decide whether the case goes to trial. Prosecutors in the case are seeking the death penalty. Last November's massacre is the deadliest shooting on a U.S. military post. Attention turned to the brother of one of the defendants in the Robert Wone case in court today. Prosecutors said that Michael Price, the brother of Joe Price, had a key to the house, security codes to the alarm, and a substance abuse problem and a bipolar disorder. But during police interviews following the murder, none of the defendants revealed that information. Michael Price is not charged in this case. His brother, along with Dylan Ward and Victor Zaborski, are charged with attempting to cover up the murder. Robert Wone was found stabbed to death in the DuPont Circle home of the three men back in August of 2006.
Right now, search crews are ready to return to the waters of the Potomac to look for a mother and daughter who disappeared on Sunday. Witnesses saw the two go into the water near Difficult Run Stream Valley Park at Great Falls. Rescue crews searched last night and again this morning, but called off the search until later this evening. News 4's Megan McGrath has the latest on their efforts.
Search and rescue crews suited up and returned to the spot where it happened, an area near Difficult Run, a treacherous section of the river on the Virginia side. Experienced kayakers know it well.
So it's definitely a dangerous place. It's got a lot of steep drops, a lot of rocks, slippery rocks, and so I can certainly see why someone walking on those rocks would fall into the creek and then not be able to get out.
The shoreline in the area can also be quite rugged. The 36-year-old woman and her 14-year-old daughter were on the rocks and somehow ended up in the water. That was at 5 o'clock last night, but officials say they have not given up hope of finding them alive.
We are still in a search and rescue operation mode because they could be clinging to debris. They could be hung up in rocks someplace that we've not been able to get into. So there are a lot of options that we're considering right now to keep this as a search.
With a helicopter looking from above, the boats made their way up the river this morning. These spray-painted marks show the beginning of the search area. The teams are doing a grid search from Anglers Inn to Difficult Run.
The orange markers are made as our reference points. We were told by the witnesses yesterday that those are the boundaries of the area that the witnesses stated we saw the victims in. So we're starting our search in that area, and due to the current now and the next day, we will expand our search.
Megan McGrath, News 4.
Rescuers are hoping to get back out on the water within the hour. New at 4, 2 taxis, a Metro bus, and 3 other cars crashed into each other in downtown D.C. today. The driver of one cab is in grave condition this afternoon. 4 others were hospitalized for minor injuries. D.C. fire investigators believe the driver of the cab suffered a medical emergency and caused the crash. Case Street is still closed from 13th to 15th Street while investigators examine the scene.
This afternoon, a search is underway for a gunman who shot a teenager in the head. Police tell us the 16-year-old girl was shot in an apartment complex in the 5900 block of Cherrywood Lane in Greenbelt last night. Witnesses say she was standing near a path in a courtyard between 2 buildings. They say another teenage girl was with her and started running away, shouting, "He shot her." Police say the shooter may also be a teenager. The victim's name hasn't been released. She's in critical condition at the hospital. The discovery of a body inside an SUV led to a hazmat situation in Gaithersburg last night. It happened here at a parking lot near First Field and Clopper Roads. That's where police and firefighters found the body of a 39-year-old man inside a white Ford Explorer. When they opened the doors, several officers were overcome by strong gasoline fumes. They were treated and released from the hospital. Police are still trying to figure out what killed the man inside the vehicle.
D.C. cab drivers are upset with the way Mayor Adrian Fenty is managing the taxi cab authority, and they're taking their message to the public. Cab drivers began handing out thousands of flyers today, hoping those flyers will educate the public. They held a rally at Freedom Plaza earlier. A review last year found that the median mileage rate for cab drivers throughout the Washington metro area is $2. But here in the district, drivers are only getting $1.50. There's also a $19 cap on all fares. Mayor Fenty right now has emergency authority over the city's taxi cab industry.
There are indications today that Israel may change its policy on the blockade of Gaza. That was exactly the goal of pro-Palestinian activists, 9 of whom were killed yesterday in a raid that went terribly wrong. If Israel does change its policy, it will be due in part to pressure from the White House. And the top diplomat, Steve Handelsman, reports.
Tough talk from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. She said an Israeli investigation will not be enough. And she took the side of the protesters the Israelis attacked on the key issue.
The situation in Gaza is unsustainable and unacceptable.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who canceled a White House visit to manage the crisis, signaled he might agree to ease the blockade that's crippled Gaza. Video shot by activists on the ship where 9 died, and video by the Israeli military seemed to show soldiers attacked as they came down ropes to the biggest ship of the Gaza aid flotilla. What's not clear is if this was before or after some Israelis opened fire. Here, an Israeli Marine is clubbed. In Washington, the Israeli ambassador said his soldiers behaved like American forces would.
Men and women landing on a boat carrying dangerous materials into the United States would take whatever measures were necessary to defend themselves.
But did the boats carry weapons? Journalists aboard say no. Protesters outside the White House today called the Israeli reaction overkill.
Condemn Israel now!
At 2 a.m. this morning, New York time, the UN Security Council did condemn Israel. There was a protest in Gaza, the teeming Palestinian strip still blockaded by Israel. I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News, Washington.
Now, the White House is pressuring the Israelis to allow supplies into Gaza and to release the protesters on the ships that were raided this week.
U.S. officials and al-Qaeda say the number 3 leader in the terror network has been killed. Sheikh Saeed al-Masri was also known as Mustafa Abu al-Yazid. He was killed about a week ago in a tribal area of Pakistan. An al-Qaeda statement says he was killed by an American missile strike. U.S. officials say his death is a significant blow to the terror group. Sheikh Saeed served as a conduit between al-Qaeda's top leaders and the rest of the organization.
News 4 is just getting started. Shocking announcement today.
Up next at 4:15, why former presidential candidate Al Gore says he and his wife Tipper are splitting.
Then at 4:30, the controversial decision by a sitting bishop to excommunicate a church nun.
And at 4:55, for former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, there's a new neighbor. So why is she going to extreme lengths to keep her distance? We'll have that story.